Here's another hot video on the hearing on Harry Waite. This is a photograph of Harry and his attorney Dan Hartman, and this is also October 7, 2022. Dan Hartman is an attorney now representing Harry Waite from the state of Michigan. Harry Waite is the individual who ordered absentee ballots through the Wisconsin My Vote system, who exposed the vulnerabilities of that system. The Department of Justice of Wisconsin is taking Harry to court over allegations of voter fraud. But today we'd like to look at the way the media portrayed this court hearing, or spin, in other words, on the different media sites within the local area and some of the larger media outlets. But let's first start with the photographs. Now, these are my photographs of protesters that arrived at about the same time that the supporters for Harry Waite showed up. As you can see, there's maybe a half a dozen, maybe a few more. These are pictures of reporters that were at the site. There were a number of reporters from a number of different news agencies. So we'd like to look at the different ways that the news reported Harry Waite's hearing. Okay, this is the headline of the Racine Journal-Times. It says it's a fraud case not making progress. Well, let's take a look at this a little bit. Notice the photograph, lock Harry up, and the negative connotations from that initial photograph. Now, this is the Kenosha News. As you can see, Harry looks worried, disgusted, concerned, and this is in the Kenosha News. Now, this photograph showed up in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and as you can see, these are the protesters and a hot supporter in front of them. No pictures of supporters were actually in that article. Here's the headline of that Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel article. Supporters and detractors clash at the court hearing for Racine County man who committed election fraud to make a point. If you are going to read that paper, you're going to read that headline, and then you're going to look at a picture such as this that is also in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel article. Now, this photograph also circulated on Yahoo News and other news agencies that were major across the nation. But if you look at the photograph, it looks like Harry Waite has made a fist, and it's a negative picture of Harry with a protester. And that actually was a very congenial discussion that went on there. But if you read the headline and look at the picture, you're drawing a totally different conclusion to what actually happened. Okay, let's dig into the article a little bit. There's an interview of Mount Pleasant man who says that it's all about suppression, meaning suppression for the Harry Waite and his supporters to the voters. It also states that he is a majority of the time a Democratic voter. So as you go down the article a little bit, you can read where this individual is confronted by Waite supporters, and one being Jay Stone, who ran for Senate and also put in complaints to the Wisconsin Election Commission, which were obviously in this article dismissed, but also that he used derogatory terms, was asshole, and male genitals. We will get back to that shortly, but I'd like to move on to the article. Then wraps up with Sheriff Schmeling, who is the sheriff of Racine County, stating he did not arrest Waite, but instead publicized the plot on social media as being helpful in rooting out vulnerabilities in the state election system, and blamed the Wisconsin Election Commission, calling on commissioners to remove a way voters can easily request ballots online. That's not really what happened. Sheriff Schmeling did a press release. It got posted on Facebook, but he did announce that there were vulnerabilities. But in this particular article, she is stating that it's a way to suppress the vote. So you can see how they can spin this to use that term, suppressing the vote, which was used earlier in the article with the person that was interviewed. So let's move on to the next article. So this is the shot of the Racine Journal-Times, the local section. in the actual newspaper, "Hurry up and wait." So again, this photograph of Harry facing the protesters. In the lower, another photograph of Lock Harry Up and voter suppression. Again, no pictures of the actual supporters for Harry Waite. But one of the more interesting things is the ugly political discourse. We go down on the paper a little bit, and it talks about Jay Stone using cussing at a protester, and how Jay was spreading conspiracy theories about Joe Biden's election win over Donald Trump, and he was running against Van Wangard, a Republican nominee, as a Republican nominee. He actually puts in the vote totals. So that article probably was it was almost a distraction to what actually happened in this case. They didn't actually go into the case. They actually diverted it to Jay Stone and the activities that happened outside of the courtroom before actually getting into the court. And I know they were in the court. I saw them. And so let's go into some other media sources that reported, and I'll draw a little conclusion at the end. Now, this is actually what happened in this discourse or confrontation between the two groups. And as you can see, I'm going to unmute this so you can listen to what actually happened. Okay, so you can kind of tell what happened there. And Harry, as you saw, kind of laughed, and it was actually a kind of a funny moment. The other fellow was just as boisterous as Jay Stone, and I did hear Jay Stone say "asshole," and I'm going to just take the reporter's word that he did use the male genital term. But that's the extent of that confrontation. So as you can see, they're kind of mulling and backing off. And I mean, it was really a nothing, but, two different opinions. They got a little heated, but that was about the extent of it. Now, this is a newscast, Channel 58 out of Milwaukee. And I want you to listen to this because this is a different spin on the hearing. So let's take a listen.
Waite admits to doing this, and as CBS 58's Michelle Fiore reports, he says it was all to prove a point.
Well, the story of the day isn't that Harry Waite was in court here in Racine County this day. More so, it's about the growing amount of support he's receiving from all around the country. To some, he's a hero.
He's the whistleblower, and now we're going to throw him in jail for it.
Moke Ziegler drove down from Suring, Wisconsin. We met people in this room from Wausau, Langlade, Kenosha, and Wind Lake. They wore Free Harry shirts and buttons and planned to be back.
Take heed, please. This is America. We got to protect America. It's not about Harry. It's about...
I don't believe this is a real crime. This is not a crime of will or intent. This is simply a crime of civil disobedience to make a point.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. The state of Wisconsin appears by assistance.
Friday's hearing lasted a matter of minutes. The head of a group called Honest, Open, and Transparent Government, Harry Waite, originally intended to represent himself, but Dan Hartman took the case.
Well, his support is not limited to Wisconsin. That's why I'm here from Michigan. It's a national issue and a national concern.
Waite and many of his advocates support the disproven claim that the 2020 election was marred by rampant voter fraud. Still, his case has received national attention, giving right-wing supporters in this room all the more reason to press forward, despite the Wisconsin Election Commission's saying Waite committed a crime.
The grinding powers of government are silencing opposition. It's as simple as that.
I will say with what Harry has raised as an issue, the fact that he's being prosecuted is not a surprise to anybody.
And Harry Waite is due back in court on October 21st. Reporting in Racine, I'm Michelle Fiore, CBS 58 News.
So what does this prove? It proves that many news media outlets have their own agenda. You've got to hunt for your news. It's extremely important for people to educate themselves on these subjects, more so than it used to be. H.O.T. government is going to continue to be honest, open, and transparent and hold our government officials accountable. I'm going to leave you with Harry Waite's attorney, Dan Hartman, after the hearing and his statements. Thank you.
System, I think Monday, correct?
Yeah, we'll be filing on Monday.
Gag order, Harry.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking to the press, I'm talking to the people.
Okay.
Yeah, but regardless, so, here's what I just want to say. I know that this is a very important issue, and Harry and I have been appointed a very short period of time. We were introduced together. For those of you a little bit curious about my involvement in this, is that I've been an attorney since 1996. I've done criminal defense work. Harry and I have, he's got a gag order, and that applies to me too, related to the issues we're going to raise. We have to raise those in the courtroom. But what I would just say is that I know that the issues are going to be raised that concern all of you, which relate to the issues of justification by necessity, as well as his political expression cases, and we're going to raise all those stuff. But right now, today, I think this is prudent. I want to spend some time working with Harry, a few of the members of his team, to put just together a little bit more information. And then there's a briefing that we want to file on Monday that could be dispositive, could not be, and you'll have to wait and see what that pleading is because of the orders of the court.
Can we get your name?
Sure. Dan Hartman, Daniel J. Hartman. I'm out of Petoskey, Michigan.
Can you talk a little bit about the briefing that you're filing?
Not yet. I will just indicate that if you look in the court record, Harry's already raised a lot of those issues in pro per. We're just going to be putting them into a legal brief form and presenting them for the judge for decision.
Can you just talk about your thoughts about succeeding in this case and what the going forward, what your plan might be?
Let me say this. Whenever a citizen and the government have conflict, the resources of the state come against a person, it's very challenging to withstand that. And what I will say with what Harry has raised as an issue, the fact that he's being prosecuted is not a surprise to anybody. The underlying message that underlines why this case is occurring is why we are here. And ultimately, without getting into further issues or trouble, if you look at the motivation and what the conflict is, you will see the entire story. And there's nothing new that I'm going to say. I'm just going to help advocate and to present the arguments. And I'm familiar with court procedure, so I'm not going to create any new arguments that Harry hasn't raised or already put out there prior to the gag order. I'm just going to help him organize and present and advocate for him.
Can I ask a question of Harry just about the support as it just continues to seemingly grow over these weeks?
Well, his support is not limited to Wisconsin. That's why I'm here from Michigan. It's a national issue and a national concern.
Is Harry willing to talk about the support that he's seeing out there?
You know, I haven't reviewed the terms of that order. Why don't we wait and talk on the 21st within the limits and the confines of that? But obviously there's both supporters and detractors, but this is an issue that needs to be addressed in the order of a courtroom, and we need to make sure there's a fair hearing and a fair result. And I think that we'll get that.
Anything else, folks? Any other questions?
Well, Harry.
We're with you, Harry.
Hey.
We're with you. If anybody doesn't know, if you guys are out here, you didn't know Harry was in there asking for you to be able to hear what happened.